Top 5 Science Stories of 2017. 5. Scientists create time crystals and break time translation symmetry. According to the first law of thermodynamics, perpetual motion machines which produce work without any energy input are impossible. However, earlier this year, physicists created structures called time crystals which certainly put that notion to the test. Time crystals act as the first real-world examples of a new state of matter called non-equilibrium, where the atoms have varying temperatures and are never in thermal equilibrium with one another. Time crystals have an atomic structure which repeats not just in space but also in time, allowing them to maintain constant oscillation without energy. This occurs even at ground state, which is the lowest energy state where movement, theoretically, is impossible because it requires energy expenditure. So are time crystals breaking the laws of physics? Technically, no. Conservation of energy can only be defined within systems with time translation symmetry. The idea that the laws of physics are the same everywhere and at all times, and if there's one thing that time crystals do break, it's time translation symmetry. They're not the first, however. Magnets are also frequently brought up as naturally asymmetrical objects because they have a north end and a south end. Another reason why time crystals don't break the laws of thermodynamics is because they are not completely isolated. They need a nudge every now and then, just a bit of outside energy to get them to start flipping their states over and over again. Possible future applications for time crystals involve information transfer and storage within quantum systems. They could play a crucial role in quantum computing. 4. Dragonfly wings are alive. Simplified, Merriam-Webster defines wing as a movable feathered or membranous appendage used by birds, insects, and bats to achieve flight. It is not supposed to be alive, but entomologists at Kiel University in Germany made some startling discoveries that suggest otherwise, at least in morpho dragonflies. Insects breathe through a tracheal system. Air enters their bodies through external openings called spiracles. It then goes through a complex network of tracheal tubes, which deliver the air to all cells of the body. Wings, however, are made up almost entirely of dead tissue, which dries up and either becomes translucent or covered in color patterns. The areas of dead tissue are bordered by veins, which are the only wing components that are part of the breathing system. However, when entomologist trainer Guillermo Ferreira looked at a wing of the male Zenithoptera dragonfly through an electron microscope, he saw tiny, branching tracheal tubes. This marks the first such observation in any insect wing. It will take a lot of testing to determine if this physiological feature is particular to this species or, perhaps, common in dragonflies or even in other insects. It could even be a mutation found by chance in just one individual, but experts are doubtful. The presence of abundant supplies of oxygen could explain the vibrant, complex blue colors found on the wings of Zenithoptera dragonflies, which contain no blue pigment. 3. Ancient thick found filled with dinosaur blood. We have discovered some amazing things preserved in amber, but this year's findings might take the cake. Scientists in Myanmar uncovered pieces of amber dated to 99 million years ago which contained parasites similar to modern thicks. One of them was entangled in a dinosaur feather, 2 were found with bits of a dinosaur nest, and the 4th was filled with dinosaur blood. Of course, this made people immediately think of a Jurassic Park-like scenario where we could use the blood to bring dinosaurs back to life. Unfortunately, that won't happen anytime soon because extracting DNA samples from these kinds of amber-preserved fossils is impossible. There is still ongoing debate regarding how long a DNA molecule can last, but even the most optimistic estimates say only a few million years under ideal conditions. Even if it didn't bring back the dinosaurs, the newly named Dienacryton draculae, Dracula's terrible tick, is still an extraordinary find that providing us with new information. We now know not only that ancient ticks targeted feathered dinosaurs but also that they infested the dinosaur nests. 2. Adult human undergoes gene modification. The current apex of gene therapy is clustered regularly interspaced palindromic repeats or CRISPR. It is a family of DNA sequences which now form the basis for a technology called CRISPR/Cas9, which, theoretically, could permanently alter a human's DNA. In 2017, the gene editing tool took a step forward after a team from Beijing's Proteome Research Center announced it successfully used CRISPR/Cas9 to correct disease-causing mutations in viable human embryos. A different team from London's Francis Crick Institute went the opposite route and used the technology to intentionally create mutations in human embryos for the first time. Specifically, they switched off a gene, preventing the embryos from developing into blastocysts. The studies showed that CRISPR/Cas9 works and with relative ease. However, this prompted intense ethical debates about how far this technology should be taken. Theoretically, it could lead to designer babies which could possess intellectual, athletic, and physical characteristics per the specifications of the parents. Ethics aside, there was an even bigger development this November when CRISPR/Cas9 was used for the first time on an adult human. 44-year-old Brad Maddox from California suffers from Hunter syndrome, an incurable disease which could eventually confine him to a wheelchair. He was injected with billions of copies of the corrective gene and a genetic tool used to cut his DNA, insert the gene, and stitch it back up. It will take a few months before we can tell if the procedure was successful or not. 1. Which came first, the sponge or the jelly? A new research paper published this year seeks to end, once and for all, the long-standing debate regarding the origin of animals. According to the study, sponges are the sisters of every other animal in the world. This comes from the fact that sponges were the first group to branch off from the evolutionary tree which, at the time, contained only the primitive common ancestor to all animals. This would have happened roughly 750 million years ago. Prior to this story, the hotly contested debate seemed to have whittled down to just two candidates, the aforementioned sponges and marine invertebrates called comb jellies. While sponges are simple creatures that sit on the ocean floor and survive through filter feeding, comb jellies are more complex. They resemble jellyfish, are able to propel themselves through water, can create light patterns, and have simple nervous systems. Finding out which one came first also means finding out what our common ancestor looked like. It is considered a vital part in tracing our evolutionary timeline. While the study boldly proclaims the matter settled, just a few months prior, another study came out saying that comb jellies are our evolutionary sisters. It is too early to tell if the latest research is, indeed, foolproof enough to quell any lingering doubts.